Howdy, how's it going? Welcome back, or howdy if you're new. Today we have the Zephyrus G16 back on the table. It's back by popular demand. I have read your questions, seen your comments, and here today I am going to help you. You guys have had some cooling concerns and questions, and you wanted me to tell you what is worth upgrading, what can you upgrade, what type of cooling improvements can be done, because, well, let's face it, laptops, they get hot. So we're going to address a couple of free and easy solutions that you can use on this laptop, and then we're also going to cover all the way up to the baller budget side. So if you want to make sure that you can get this thing as chilly as humanly possible, we'll have a solution for everyone. Now, stay tuned, we have more handheld content coming. We're just taking a little breather today to revisit some laptop content, but trust me, the handheld content will return. And then we also have some desktop content coming soon as well. Huge shout out to the channel OGs. Thank you guys so much for all your love and support, and thank you to you guys as well. We're on the roll to hit 10K extremely soon, and thank you all for being along this journey with me. And also we're going to talk about some controllers as well. Alright, so this laptop is the Zephyrus G16. It's very thin, it's very lightweight, it's got a nice breathable bottom panel here, but one of the reasons why the temperatures can kind of struggle is, well, they were striving for something very thin and lightweight. And as you can see here, the little nub that's supposed to lift it off of the table isn't very high. So there's a couple of ways that you can address this. The first thing is you want to make sure that any laptop has enough breathing room. There are easy solutions that you can do. I'll show up above here, like these Amazon feet that you can buy for a couple of bucks. Plap them on the bottom and you're good to go. That'll drop your temperatures about 5 to 10 C. Now there's another option, like you can get a cooling pad, but we're gonna actually show you side by side the differences between these two. And then the other concern is, of course, what type of NVMe can you upgrade? There is an NVMe slot in here. It's open. You can put anything in there you want, with one potential caveat. So you guys know I love my 990 Pro drives. I immediately tried to put this one in here, and I did run into some clearance issues. So I don't think you're going to be able to run any type of heat sink. So here's one exception to the rule right here. This I completely forgot about until after filming. This is the Predator 2TB GM7000, and they also make it in a 4TB for only $249. It has a graphene heat spreader, and it actually does an even better job than most heat sinks on drives. So I would strongly recommend checking this drive out. It should have just enough squish to fit in there without any type of fitment issues. So if you turn it over on its back, you will see screws along the side here. There's two little plastic pieces that pry up, and then there's hidden screws under here. So go ahead and remove all these screws, set them aside in the location that they came out of so you don't get them mixed up going back in, because some of them are different links. So I'm going to go ahead and cut. Alright, so now that we got all the screws removed, by the way, you will need a Torx bit, a T6x30. This is the size that you'll need to get those screws out. Not a Phillips head, so make sure that you don't use the wrong screwdriver bit, because you can easily strip those out. So there's two ways you can get this off, is putting your fingernails under there. You can start in one corner or another, but it does help to have some type of little pry tool to get under here. So let me show you what one of those looks like. All right, so this is a little pry tool. It's got a little pick. You can also use a guitar pick. That'll definitely work as well. All right, there we go. Start on this side right here. This is probably going to be a little bit easier. So go ahead and start on this corner, run it around, and just be gentle as you pop it. There you go. And once you get it, it'll come off. It's pretty easy. This one gave me a little bit of a resistance, and there's one reason why. You can see right here, this is a 2mm thermal pad, and I found that it is the perfect size for cooling this 990 Pro without a heatsink. I actually installed this on the second bay because I really just didn't feel like reinstalling Windows. You can go through the cloud recovery on most computers, and you can insert your fresh drive in here, boot up into the BIOS, and do a fresh install of Windows through the BIOS using cloud recovery. Or you've got another option, like you can buy an NVMe cloner, you can clone the drive, but there is a little bit of FAFO with that, so just watch a guide for it. But This side over here already has pretty good heat shielding, and I'll throw up on the screen now of what the drive temp is stock on this particular drive as it is. And even under a full stress load, you can see it's clearly well within spec. We're not even getting close to the thermal throttling limit. And then over here, I'll show you on the screen what it ended up being with this thermal pad. And well, temps on both of these drives are really good. Now there's one other potential caveat with this side over here. You do get a little bit of a limited speed bandwidth or limited speed bus. It is not operating at the same as this side over here. I believe the PCIe lanes are slightly different. Maybe this one's running at Gen 3 instead of Gen 4, but it's not that bad. You can see the speeds here on this side, and you can see the speeds here on that side. Those speeds are more than adequate for most people, and it probably won't be a concern at all for you. You won't see any noticeable difference in games or pretty much anything really. So that's why I said it's probably your best bet to just get whatever drive that you see fit. I would strongly advise checking the NVMe tier list and then also looking to see what type of controller it is. Is it a TLC? Is it QLC? And then also look and see what type of controller it uses. Does it have cache? What type of warranty does it have? And so on. There's a lot that goes into a drive. Generally, if you look on the tier list, I'll show some screenshots here, you'll get a better idea of if a drive is entry level, mid-tier or mid-range, or high-end or like ultra high. The higher up you go, the more expensive they generally get. But you can find some gems on this list most of the time because some drive manufacturers often make drives for other new and upcoming drive manufacturers. So a lot of you guys might know the brand Inland, and those are the Micro Center house brand drives. They're also sold on Amazon. But I've noticed that when I've taken the labels off of them and when I've compared very specific ones anyways, that they are nearly identical to some of the counterparts that were made by Sabrent, and it's rumored that they're made in the same factory or they use the exact same chips and memory on very specific drives. So you could actually look at the specs and probably find which ones I'm talking about. So sometimes those Inland drives go on like a deep sale at Micro Center, and sometimes they aren't. So I always look at price to performance. There's never a go-to drive unless money doesn't matter. Now, if money doesn't matter, 990 Pro all day. If money does matter and you want to find the best bang for the buck and still get the same amount of performance, then look at the tier list, see which ones are in that high-end category and go from there, and price shop because they change from day to day. Storage drives are just all over the place. So one of the other things I would recommend doing is if you've had it for more than a year, it's probably time to look into repasting it if you're seeing severe CPU or GPU thermally throttling occurring and you've already tried a cooling pad, then I would recommend going ahead and repasting it. We'll look at this one later because I'm not perfectly sure yet if it is using liquid metal or not. And one of those things with liquid metal is you want to know beforehand, because if any of that liquid metal drops on your board, you might be SOL. It's very hard to remove. You can't use just a regular Q-tip. There are very specific methods for removing liquid metal and reapplying it, so be very careful with that. Now, if you are sure that your model uses thermal paste, then I have two options for you. The first option is to use the Thermal Grizzly Cryo Sheets. I'll put those on the camera here. I use those on everything. I use them on my Ally, I've used them on all my other laptops and my desktops for the most part. It's good stuff. It's easy to apply. You don't have to FAFO or worry if you've got too much on there. You just cut it, put it where it goes, put it back together. For the most part, it should last a lifetime. So replacing the stock thermal solution with either PTM or a Thermal Grizzly Cryo Sheet, it is the way to go. The putty that they use on the power delivery, I'll try to get a good view of it. You can see it squishing out right here. They don't generally use thermal pads, and that's for a couple of reasons. When it comes to laptops, getting this thing as flat and squishy as possible, and a lot of times a thermal pad will not get flat enough, or if you do go too low, like a 0.5 millimeter thermal pad, there's just not enough squish in those to equate for any little height differences in the power delivery, like the MOSFETs or the VRMs. So thermal putty is the way to go. I have experimented with copper shims, thermal putty, thermal paste, thermal pads, every solution out there, and the most reliable and repeatable results are always going to be with thermal putty over your power delivery and cryo sheets over here. So as far as RAM upgrades on this one, unfortunately, the only thing you could do is upgrade the Wi-Fi card, but it's already got Wi-Fi 7. There's no need to do that. Let's go ahead and put this thing back together and let's look at those cooling pads and we'll see which one fared out the best and which one I recommend. So remember, when putting this back together, you will basically just go in and click all the corners, put all your screws back in the same spot that they came in, and you should be good to go. All right, so first up is this llano RGB cooling pad. It will fit from a 15.6-inch laptop all the way up to a 21-inch laptop. It'll do up to 2800 RPMs on the fan. It is completely adjustable. It's got little feet that will hold your laptop in, which we'll show you in a second. It's RGB, and it even has a powered USB hub over here, which is really unique. Has two-way adjustable feet, so you can adjust the height as high or as low as you want. It's got a removable and cleanable dust filter, which is really cool because these things will suck up a lot of dust. It's got a nice little foam pad here that gives you a perfect seal around so you don't lose any air. It also helps quieten things down a little bit because it does get quite loud until you put a laptop on top of it. So make sure that you have this in place correctly. It says to put this side down, but I have noticed that my particular laptop works a little bit better with it here. Now, the marketing material shows that it can lower temps up to about 22 degrees Celsius, but in my testing, I was able to confirm on this particular spicy laptop that I could get a little bit more than 12 degrees Celsius on that drop. So we're going to look at that here in a second on TimeSpy, and we're going to compare it to the other laptop cooler, which I'll show you here in a second. But I'm going to show you how powerful this fan really is. So you go ahead and hold the power button down. Starts off at 300 RPMs, and then you can adjust it. This thing will blow your hair back. I can guarantee you this is the most powerful laptop cooler that I have used to date, and the RGB effects are really cool. You can change those out on the fly, and you can even turn them off if you want. So let's look at the second cooler, and then I'm going to show you side by side what they ended up doing on the benchmark, and I'll tell you if it's worth it to spend the $90 to $100 on one of these things. Right now it's coming in at about 92 bucks. It's 20% off. So if you look here, this is the current price, but the price may fluctuate depending on when you're looking at it. Maybe cheaper, maybe more. I'll definitely have links below. So let's look at the other solution. This is El Cheapo here. Don't really remember the brand. I'll show it here. There's not near as much airflow potential. It doesn't have near the fans. These fans are pretty weak. As far as ports on the back, you get a USB type A port that I don't even believe will transmit data. I think it's really just to charge up something. And then you can adjust the fan speed here, and there is barely any adjustment on that. It feels super cheap, and it is super cheap. It gets the job done, and it has two adjustable legs here. It's not fancy, but it will totally work. But we're gonna see, is the other one worth the extra money for the extra features? All right, so now let's look at all three results. On the left side, we have the I'm broke, please help me, I can't afford anything, I spent all my money on the laptop solution, which is basically just trying to raise the back up by about an inch. And then in the middle, we have, well, I've got a few dollars left over. I need a solution for right now. I don't care if it lasts me 6 months. I just need to keep this thing cool so my laptop will last me longer than that. And then over here, we have, I'm not broke. I just bought a baller laptop, so I'm not going to cheap out. I'm going to buy the baller cooler to match it. Let's see how they stack up. Stock TimeSpy results with the Ryzen AI 9 HX370 and the RTX 4070, all power profiles maxed out. We hit 5,480. On the janky pad, we hit 5,837. And then on the RGB pad, we hit 5,852. You can see between these two solutions, there's a pretty big jump. We're not forcing any more air into it on the cheap side, but over here, we're forcing just enough air into it to where we're making a good enough difference to where I think it's worth the money. spinning a little bit at least. Now over here, we start to see an even bigger temperature gap, and that actually translates to a little bit higher score, and it also will help you in games as well to get a little bit more performance and to not run into any thermal throttling. So you can see the max temperature over here, we only hit 81C on the CPU and 71C on the GPU, which is a total of 10 to 11 degrees cooler than stock. So we actually saw the biggest temperature drop between these two. And this one meets you right there in the middle at about 7 degrees better than stock. Anything is better than nothing. So if you can drop 7 degrees, that's great. But if you can drop 10 or more degrees, that's really the sweet spot if you are playing AAA titles like Call of Duty, Black Ops, Forza, Black Myth Wukong, any of those AAA titles. These temps are probably more likely to be what you're going to see with everything turned to the nines. Now, if you're playing cozy games, you might not ever see anything that's going to worry you or make you sweat or think something is wrong. But if you are hitting thermal throttle limits on any computer, it does reduce your performance in order to try to save itself. So the longer that you can keep this thing in a cool state and never hit those targets, the longer your hardware will last. Do you need it? No. Should you get one? Yes, I do think everyone with a laptop should have a cooling pad. I really strongly advise that with any laptop purchase. Doesn't matter if you have a MacBook, budget laptop, or anything. You take care of your stuff, it'll take care of you. And I do believe investing a few dollars in all my devices to try to protect my investment. If I spend $2,000 or $3,000 on a laptop or a desktop component, I'm not going to just YOLO it and hope that it lasts at the temperatures that it currently runs at, because who knows? Had bad luck in the past where things just don't last, so I would rather spend a few dollars to protect my investment. So thank you to llano for sending this over for review. At the end of the day, it definitely gets my stamp of approval. However, the price definitely is a little bit spicy, but if you just invested $2,000 in a laptop, however much it is, it's not going to make or break you, and it will help prolong the life of your device. And it also gives a lot of quality of life features that you might be lacking and you might be needing. So I do think it's worth that type of money. It does feel like a premium product. The other one, the cheaper one, it definitely gets the job done. However, I don't think it's going to last near as long. Those fans started making a lot of squeaking noise after a couple of months, and then it just didn't really kind of like feel like a quality device. This feels very thick. It's very beautiful. It's got nice RGB. It offers a premium product for a premium price. So keep that in mind when you're shopping for one. Links below. And until the next one, guys, I really appreciate it and hope all of you have a good afternoon, good evening, or good night.